It's so nice to have you come and visit us. And it's particularly nice that you want to learn about us. My name is Miriam Altman, and Mount Clemens has been my home for most of my life. Okay. You can't hear me in the back. Okay, I'll try and speak a little louder. Our family originally came from New York. I have two older sisters, Rose and Molly, and a younger brother, Morris. And my parents, Sadie and Julius, who rest beside me here, came to Mount Clemens for a very good reason. You see, as a child, I contracted polio, and it left me with crippling scoliosis. So my parents took me to the St. Joseph Sanitarium to be able to take advantage of our mineral baths. And they were such a comfort. You see, I had been treated at the University of Michigan Hospital, and part of my treatment was that they would strap my legs to boards to try and straighten them. Well, you can imagine how comforting those mineral baths were. But in spite of my illness, my parents had a very good life here in Mount Clemens. Actually, we all did. They owned and operated a boarding house on Cass Avenue. It's right behind the laundromat. And perhaps when you drive back to Crocker House, you'll notice it this time. We lived there too, and at that time, the folks that came for the mineral baths, they would come for 21 days. So we had no trouble booking our boarding house for the entire summer. My mother was a wonderful cook. She served our boarders kosher meals. And in later years, I tried to recreate some of her recipes. But it was my mother who was really the good cook. However, some of her skills rubbed off on my brother Morris, because he had a lunch counter at the corner of Cass and Walnut, and then later a Howard Johnson's on southbound Gratiot. Well, I was homeschooled. Every day I would watch Rose and Molly go off to school, and I was so envious of them. I was babied by my family, probably because of my disability. But I was a very determined person, and even though I was a bright child, my family never really considered that I would go to college. But I was determined to be normal, better than normal. So, you know what I did? I graduated from Mount Clemens High School in 1938, and then I applied to the University of Michigan. Well, at first, they didn't want to accept me. At that time, they felt that my disability would prevent me from being successful. But I already told you how headstrong and determined I was. Well, I convinced them that I wouldn't let anything stand in my way. So, in 1938, I received my bachelor in library science degree, and later my master's degree in library science. My first job was in Ann Arbor at the William Clemens Library, and I enjoyed my job, but my real desire was to move back to my hometown. So in 1940, I moved to the library, our original library actually, that was on Grant Avenue. And that library was established in 1905 through a grant with the Carnegie Foundation. It's a beautiful neoclassical structure, and you can see it going down southbound Gratiot. It's the home of the Art Center, Mount Clemens Art Center today. Well, in 1942, I was admitted to, not admitted actually, I was appointed the assistant librarian. And at that time, our librarian was Ann Crocker, the very same Ann Crocker who was George and Catherine's daughter. Well, she retired in 1956, and I was appointed head librarian at that time, and fortunate enough to hold that position until my own retirement in 1973. During my tenure as a head librarian, we moved from our location on Grant Street to our new library on Cass Avenue. And I was very fortunate to be a part of the planning for that new library. Through some of Ann's input as well, our library is known to have one of the best, or actually the best, genealogical and local history collections in the state. And our library on Cass Avenue is one of the few libraries, public libraries, that was totally financed by the community. Well, I enjoyed my work. Of course, passion for me were the books, but I loved being with the people. And I would notice what people would read, what their reading choices were. And you can tell a lot about people by what they choose to read. The young people also, I watched them grow and mature and be able to seek out information and their questions and just find answers to things that they worried about or were concerned about. And a library interest also reflects the times in which we live. Why, I remember in the 1970s, witchcraft and the occult were big topics. But I believe that a library has an obligation to provide information without censorship. Freedom of the press, that's what I believe. I also had time to participate in a lot of other activities that were interesting to me. I was a member of the American Library Association and the Michigan Library Association. I was part of the Macomb County Historical Society. In fact, I edited and contributed to this book for the Macomb County Historical Society. An organization very dear to my heart was the Organization for Rehabilitation Through Training. And then, of course, there was also my sisterhood of Beth Tefillah Moses Congregation. I kept busy at home as well. I believe that it's important to keep abreast of current events, especially today. So I had magazines, newspapers, all over my apartment. And sports. I love the Lions and the Tigers. How are they doing? Doing pretty good? I heard from another group that they were anyway. Well, that's a good thing. I am pleased to hear that. I also enjoyed needlepoint in my quiet times, and I love to travel, especially traveling to look for antiques, because you never know what treasure you'll find. Well, I never married or had children, but I had wonderful nieces and nephews, and many good friends, and a very dear friend and caregiver, Yvonne Quince. All things considered, I had a pretty good life. Most of the years were good ones for 91 years. I wish the same for you. Now, I'd like you to have some time with Samuel Elkins. He was here long before I was, but he has an interesting history. He's over that way.
Thank you.